a suit and tie and get your hair cut way up high. Get yourself a lawyer, son. You're gonna need a real good one.
Lawyer time. David Whiting is here. You're here. Although I do have a couple of lines free. And if you've got a question or a problem, I'm sure David Whiting can help. 1300 222 774. Bonjour, Mr. Whiting.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
I am well, thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
I hear you got beaten up at a meeting the other day.
It was Law Week last week, and I got asked to present at Mornington Library, so I wandered down. And last week we had a caller, and the caller said my golden retriever ran into the back of the legs of someone in a dog park, and that person went over. They exchanged names and addresses and phone numbers, and some months later got a request for, I've suffered some loss, can you reimburse my expenses, please?
It was $1,500.
Well, and we thought that $1,500 was a reasonable outcome, recognising that we knew we'd caused a problem. We just didn't know the full extent of the problem. And this lady said that she was yelling at the radio, make her prove her claim. And I come along and say, well, I would have thought that if you've had medical expenses incurred in relation to, I assume that most people are telling the truth or what they believe to be true. Yep. And so I assume there was a valid claim there, and the question was, what can I make it go away for, given that it's probably not covered by my insurance? So I thought $1,500 was the right answer.
Well, I think I agree, because in making her prove her claim, you're going to burn through $1,500 pretty quickly just with your first few meetings with your lawyer.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you still haven't got to the point of, is it true and do I have to pay you in the end?
And is it enough?
And is it
now,
enough?
If you could make it go away for $1,500,
that's right. It could end up being $6,000.
Could be.
Yeah.
Who knows?
No, I think I agree with you, David, but then I wouldn't I?
Well,
any homework?
I had a homework in relation to title insurance. Title insurance is not something that's widely promoted or sold here, and the question from the caller was that his solicitor or conveyancer has recommended title insurance, Simon from Rowville, and the question is, well, what does it cover, and is it worth having? Illegal or non-compliant building works that are discovered on the property, errors made by local councils in reporting charges, compulsory land acquisition. Look, I have to actually say that if you do your proper inquiries at the outset, most of these are covered. Misdescriptions in land area, so the fence is on the wrong side, well, are they just going to give you money or are they going to fix the problem? I don't know. So if it's suggested to you, have a look at it. But as a general proposition, my view would be they would have very few claims.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. 1300 222 774. Craig in Lilydale, you kick us off today. Go ahead.
Yes, my question is, I was the executor of my deceased parents, and one of my siblings, I never rang their sibling to say my father was dying. I didn't think of it. It was such a shock. And I never gave that sibling, it was a COVID funeral, only 10 people could come, and I didn't give that sibling a place at the funeral, and that sibling has spoken to me and is threatened to take me to court for abuse, reckons it's abuse not doing that. I was wondering, does that sibling have any legal basis?
A church or a funeral home? Where was graveside? Where was the service?
The service was in a church.
Okay, so the question really is, no, you're only allowed to have 10 people. You're the executive.
Only 10 people.
You're responsible for interment. Who you invite is entirely up to you. But I actually look at these from the other side, Craig. What's the person's loss? How many times have they been off to see a psychologist or seek medical assistance as a result of the affront that you've caused them? My view would be it's incredibly unlikely that you will get sued. It's even more unlikely that there would be any damages suffered.
Is there any part of the estate that's left to this sibling in the will?
Yes, there is part of the estate left to the sibling in a will.
Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with attendance at the funeral.
No, I'm just wondering if there's anything to distribute to the sibling.
Yes, well, one would hope so, anyway. So, Craig, interesting. I wouldn't really be... I mean, I might apologise for having forgotten the sibling, but I don't know that you are facing a real risk of getting sued.
Yes, and it's just, I didn't phone that sibling because it was just such a shock that I rushed down the hospital. I just didn't have that sibling's number. I just didn't think it was just such a shock. It's so sudden.
Sorry,
of course,
how many non-siblings were in the 10?
Beg your pardon?
How many non-siblings were in the 10? So what gets me is
two.
Okay, and how many siblings didn't come?
Well, some. When you're saying you're meaning siblings, you're meaning brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
There was two who weren't there, and non-siblings didn't come. The others did come.
Right, but were they all invited apart from this one? Because if that was the case, if it was me, I would be incredibly affronted. Unless there's more to it, unless there's an estrangement between the parent and the child. Estrangement between you and him or you and her, I don't care about.
Fact, there was another factor. The funeral home, they weren't going to do the funeral. If that sibling came to the funeral home weren't going to do the funeral. They're going to tell us we have to get somebody else.
Why?
And my parents specifically wanted that funeral home to do the funeral for him.
Sorry, so why didn't you invite this sibling to the funeral?
Because the funeral directors, they threatened, they said they weren't going to do the funeral if that sibling's at the funeral because of the problem she's caused when the previous parent died. When the previous parent died, that sibling was harassing the funeral directors after the funeral, and seeing that she was harassing the funeral directors before the second. A few days before a couple of days after the second parent died.
Craig, I would just simply, let's just look at the damages. I don't see that the sibling has suffered any damages. So I just don't see it going any further.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thanks for calling in. Elizabeth in Ivanhoe. Hi, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Oh, hi. I transferred some money to the wrong account. It's not a huge amount of money, and I get that lots of people are losing money all the time and scams, so I kind of feel like it's a wake-up call. I know it's my responsibility, but I've tried to recoup the money. The bank says they can't do that. The process that they go through does not seem very clear to me, and they never tell me what the next steps are, so I have to keep digging around and asking them for information that they already know and could share freely. So the last thing they said was, I'll just have to get legal advice. But I'm just wondering, can I just go down to the police station and say there's been a theft by finding and ask them?
Well, it's interesting. There's no evidence of theft by finding. Transferring, if you look at the theft cases involved in these kinds of transactions, it's when they take the money out of the account you put it into and go and park it in a term deposit or put it somewhere else. If it's still in the account, it's like it's still on the ground. Now, there is a process in the... How much are we talking about, Elizabeth?
About $1,000.
There is a process in the Magistrates Court for seeking what's called pre-trial discovery, and so because the bank knows who's got the money. The bank says, because of privacy reasons, I can't tell you who's got the money. They also presumably go on and say, well, I'm not going to help you get it back. Yeah. So I would be, the first thing I would go would be to AFCA, Australian Financial Complaints Authority, and I would be suggesting that there is at least some obligation on the bank to try and get it back for you. At least to ask the customer of that account for permission to take the money from them and give it to you. Now, if that doesn't work, then I would be talking to... Then you can go off to the Magistrates Court.
All right, good luck. I hope that works. Let's hear from Trish in Tallarook. Trish in Tallarook. Nice to hear from you. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning from beautiful Tallarook.
Yep.
Some time ago, I had my vehicle fixed under warranty for a piece of equipment on it that had failed. When I went to pick the vehicle up, the dealership refused to give me any paperwork to verify that the works had taken place, claiming that the paperwork was not in fact mine. However, it needed to go back to the manufacturer of the vehicle.
All right. What is it you're looking for?
I'm looking for proof. I have no proof that work took place on that piece of equipment.
Can you tell that the work was done?
I can't. No.
Okay. So why would you not? I can understand, because they will have billed the manufacturer for the warranty work. So you're not entitled to a copy of the account, but I would have thought you would be at least entitled to confirmation from the dealership that you'd brought the vehicle in for a warranty claim and the work had been done in accordance with the claim made.
That's what I would have thought, but he held it because I had signed the paperwork when I brought the vehicle in
Yes.
to say that piece of paper that you signed to say, here's my car, do what you need to do, and I will pay for it unless
Yes.
it's under warranty.
Yep.
And then when I went to pick the vehicle up, he refused to even show me that piece of paper, saying, no, you can't have this in case you take a photo of it. I said, I don't want to take a photo of it. I just want verification that this had taken place.
Yes.
I don't want to take a photo of the piece of paper. I just
Then,
want
Trish, the only thing I can suggest without you spending a great deal of money would be to send an email to the dealership saying, I'm sending you this email to confirm I dropped the vehicle off, that I had this warranty claim, and that you told me that that the warranty work had been done, but they weren't in a position to provide you with any further evidence, and that then becomes your evidence of your confirmation, if you like. Otherwise, they would need to respond and say, no, it didn't happen.
Good luck, Trish. I hope that's
what a
useful.
sensible solution. Thank you.
Thanks, Trish.
That's what we got here with
Right,
David Whiting.
except in Mornington. But let's keep going. Yep.
Yes, he's now an outsider. Melanie in Torquay. Hi, Melanie. What's going on?
Oh, hi. I'm a renter. I moved to a rental property this year. And after I moved in, I put in a pet request form for some pets. And the landlord emailed me back and said I could keep those pets here. 2 months later, the agent's getting back to us wanting to add a pet clause.
No.
And I guess we were just wondering, we're not against, I guess, there being some reasonable conditions, but are we in a position to sort of say, well, no, we don't want to sign this particular pet
What is
clause?
a pet clause, David?
Well, most leases start with the proposition that you can't have a pet.
Yep.
Then there's a provision in the legislation which says if you ask for a pet, the landlord can say no. If the landlord says no, you can go to VCAT and
Yes.
get VCAT to give you permission.
Yep.
And what's happening in Melanie's case is the landlord said yes and now wants to put conditions
Retrospectively.
on the yes. So at
Can
the
they
end
do
of-
that?
Well, they can ask for conditions on the yes, but they can't make. So, Melanie, go back and say what the landlord wanted is unacceptable, but we would agree to this.
Okay.
Okay?
How many pets, Melanie?
Well, there's a few
Goldfish
of them,
don't
but,
count.
How many
okay?
pets, Melanie?
they live outside and they're not cats or dogs.
What are they?
Just birds.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay.
So
So
a
there's an
collection-
aviary outside.
An aviary, okay. How many birds in the aviary?
7.
Wow. How many did you ask for? Or was it just
8.
pets generally? Oh, you asked for
no,
8 and you've only
I-
got 7. You're fine. Yep.
I submitted a form. There's a Consumer Affairs form, and you have to I put a photo of each pet.
Oh, well, if you've made full disclosure, Melanie, I don't have a problem, right? But go back to the landlord and say, won't agree to that, but we'll agree to this.
Lovely. Okay, I hope that works out, Melanie, because that's pulling the rug out from underneath you.
Yes.
Just-
I'll say it's no effect.
Yes.
We've already got a deal.
Yeah.
The landlord says, I'd now like to make another alteration. Thank you, but let's negotiate.
Okay. Chris in McLeod. Hi, Chris, go ahead.
Good morning. My son, the house that he rents, had a high voltage injection into the house. It destroyed the internal wiring and blew power points off the wall.
Oh.
It was a result of a tree being felled, and it took out the power lines.
Yes.
Now, some of the appliances that he has within the house have been damaged or they're not working.
Yep.
And he wants to know how can he make that claim, but he's also had to go and get temporary accommodation because his family can't live in the house.
Chris, he has a claim. It's a rented house. So the landlord has the damages claim in respect of the loss that the landlord suffered, and your son has a damages claim against the person who cut the tree down and his or her employer. And that's for his out-of-pockets, if you like, for the temporary accommodation, for the moving in and out, and for that which needs to be replaced. So his claim, he should go to the electricity company, not the one he buys his power from, but the company that supplies the power to the retailer.
Right, so that's who he makes the claim against.
Well, technically it's a claim against the contractor, but you don't know who the contractor is. So start with Powercor, whoever it happens to be, and make the demand on them And at that stage, you'll then get access, because they're required by the electricity company to have insurance. So therefore, start there.
Okay, good luck. I hope that's helpful. Milton in Docklands. Hi, Milton. What's going on?
Good morning. Hi. So I cut this really short. I took out a contract to lease some storage in a storage company, a well-known storage company. This is pre-COVID. I needed some extra storage, so I arranged to use the garage next to it for some overflow for a short period. Everything was hunky-dory. Everything was financial in the first garage. Last month, I received a text message from a debt collection company saying I owe X amount of dollars, $1,600, whatever it was.
Yes.
I then emailed the company saying, hi, can we come to some sort of arrangement? Can we work this out? They replied back, oh, I'm sorry, we sold all your items in auction.
This is in the second storage space, is it? Any documents
Correct,
for
yes.
that?
There's no documents, no.
What was in the storage space, Milton?
Basically my life stuff, all my records, some fantastic Rosenthal pottery, records, CDs.
Sorry, have both facilities, did they sell them both up or just one?
No, just the one that was
the short-term temporary one that was still had
garage.
things in it for a long time?
yes, correct.
And did you forget?
No, well, COVID hit and then we got stuck and then I didn't get a chance to go out there and I had a few other health issues and so forth.
Milton, the way I'd analyse it would be, you've got a storage contract for a particular space. You now
Correct.
then come along and say, I want the space next door.
Yes.
I think that the same terms and conditions in the first contract would apply to the second space.
Okay.
Right? Now, your argument, if there's an argument, might be as a consequence of their failure to notify you.
Or did they know? Had you been receiving bills saying you got a bill owing, and you weren't paying or weren't responding?
No, well, I didn't get anything on the second one. I was getting because on the first garage, I was getting a monthly direct debit was coming out of my account every month. So that was financial. There was no issue with the first one.
But with the second one, were you getting notices that you were ignoring?
No, nothing.
So, Milton, I can see they've got a claim against you for the storage until such time they closed it, and that'll be X $1,000. And you have a claim against them for the value of the items that they appropriated and sold, but that's likely to be fairly close to what they were sold for at auction. So you've got an offset. You're entitled to the value of the goods. They're entitled to the value of the storage, unless there is something in the first contract that obliges them to give you notice. Now, having said that, I got a call last week from a client who forgot she had some stuff in storage, and 2.5 years later, after she put them in storage, she got by the way, you owe us 2.5 years fees. So I think you'll find there's an obligation on them to send you bills.
Correct. Yeah, I can.
We then get down to the measure of damages. The measure of damages, I would have thought from their point of view, would be the storage charges, and from the other perspective, it's what's the value of the goods they sold. But they're going to be assessed at a commercial value, not an emotional value.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But this happened now. They told me they sold this 2 years ago. They've sold all these items.
Yes.
So there was limited value in terms of what I owe them for the original rental.
So you're going to have
but
to
the
put
value
some
of the items within was far excess of the 1,600.
Great. Then the answer would be it's a VCAT matter in relation to your claim.
Oh dear. Look, good luck, Milton. I'm sorry everything's gone. What do you miss most in particular? What's really broken your heart that's gone now?
All my Rosenthal coffee cups, those small little espresso coffee cups.
Yes, I know that. That series.
And a lot of memorabilia. Yeah, I can think of different things every day, like my little mini Walkman. It sounds stupid, but I had one of the first original Walkmans. It's gone.
I had one of the first original, what was it called? The CD Man again? What was that one called? That was...
The mini disc, Sony mini disc?
The Discman, that's it.
Discman, okay.
Yes, so I feel your pain. Let's try and squeeze in one more, shall we? Who have we got? James in Doncaster. Hi, James.
G'day, how are you going?
Good, go ahead.
Very well. Fire away, James.
We've got a granny flat agreement to try and keep my mother and father in their own home rather than in aged care. And what we did was took ownership of their property, built them a age-friendly house with my sisters, and really good. They're able to stay in the house for perhaps 5 years longer than they wouldn't otherwise be in aged care facilities, possibly now.
Yep.
We've just discovered that we might be subject to land tax. And the Victorian government land tax seems to have exemptions for aged care facilities, but not for the granny flood agreements.
So this is on a house they used to own. Who now owns the house? Someone else in the family?
My sisters and I jointly put the money together to build a new house.
No. I understand that. But your mother and father live in a granny flat, is that right?
They live in a brand new house that we built under the granny flat agreement. So we now own that land.
Yes.
We now own that house.
Oh, so it's not a granny flat. It's a house that you constructed for your parents. A granny flat is... A granny flat is...
The granny flat agreement is... it covers like a little unit you might put in your backyard, or it can cover the entire land.
Absolutely. It can be a 15-room mansion. That's not the question. This is a granny flat agreement that deals with the social security law, under which your parents transfer their house to you, and in return you provide them somewhere to live for the rest of their lives.
Well, we transferred the land. The house got shifted off to Koroit for a new property over there. Sorry, Mortlake. It's been renovated, recycled. But the house that they were in wasn't suitable. It had lots of stairs.
No. With all of those are kind of irrelevant. The land on which their new house is owned by you and your sisters.
My sisters. That's right. Yes.
It attracts land tax.
It does. But the exemption for the capital gains tax, etc., and all those other processes.
No, they're federal legislation. The land tax is state legislation. So your liability for land tax arises under the Victorian Land Tax Act. For want of a better word, shuffle you did with your mum and dad in relation to property ownership and construction. You would have paid stamp duty on the transfer of the property to you and your sisters.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's Victorian state duty. But there would have been no capital gains tax, or likely no capital gains tax on the transfer. No, it's an investment property is the way it will be seen by the Land Tax Office.
Okay, James?
Well, not really, because
I don't think you can ring in and ask David for his view and then argue with him about it.
Oh, yes, you can.
No, I don't want to argue.
But it's a question of what the law says, James, not what the law might say.
That's what I mean, but David, you're saying what the law says.
Yes.
But James, you have a different interpretation of the law? We might have to leave that with you.
I don't disagree with the law says that, but the problem is that it's stopping people trying to keep their elderly parents at home.
I get that, but that's not really David's purview. It's just the legal advice here. But look, I'm glad that at least you got your parents exactly where they need to be. David, always good to have you on board. Thank you so much.
Virginia.
David Whiting there. He'll be back with you next Tuesday.